to episode 17 of our series AI for Human. And this week we are discussing real world artificial intelligence, where all of these things will be measuring from episode 1 down to episode 16. What exactly is where is it being applied in the real world, right? Because for most people, the idea of using ChatGPT is a question and answer. I ask it a question, it gives me an answer. However, artificial intelligence is like way bigger than that. However, one thing I would like to quickly identify is that last week when we discussed about fine tuning, and if you remember clearly where we talked about general models as general practitioners using the doctor metaphor, and we said that models like ChatGPT and Claude are actually trained on generic all domains, right? So majorly stuff like science, math, literature, history, health, all of those things, they have information on it. However, what we do in fine tuning is that we improve the model per se with our own data, right? And this data is proprietary. And when we improve the model with our own data, we're able to kind of quiet down the other things that the model knows and only use the information that we need from the model to improve our data and also help it to be something that people can actually enjoy from. The idea was using like a law firm that actually uses ChatGPT as its foundational model, adding its own data on it, and then using that internally to be able to respond to questions, build contracts, review documents. All of these things we discussed in fine tuning, and you can look at the previous episode. However, one thing I forgot to indicate was that how exactly are these models graded? Because there was an episode where we discussed the pass or fail method for models, how models learn, where we said that if it makes a mistake, it knows that it's giving an error score. So if the answer is 2, it says the answer is 3. It compares the previous answer with the correct answer, and then it knows that that answer was wrong and it goes back to try again. It's the same thing that actually happens. But then let me take you back memory lane a bit to how ChatGPT started. I mean, I was not there, but then this might just help. So here we're going to be discussing a concept called RLHF, and it's a very long word. I mean, I don't think you need it, but this means reinforcement learning from human feedback. Now, you might remember when we talked about reinforcement learning and we said that reinforcement learning is training the model by rewarding it. So if you keep telling the model, yes, your answer is correct, it knows that that is a good answer, it holds it. And if you tell it this answer is wrong, it reduces the weight on that answer and it probably never suggests it again. It was a very long episode, so I'm going to attach it there. But the idea of reinforcement learning with human feedback here is simple. What happened is, first things, the idea here is that we are going to give a reward or a penalty. And I know, don't think of this like the World Cup. Well, that was a very interesting case anyways. But so 2 things happen here. Model is giving a penalty for bad actions and a reward for good actions, right? Yeah, so keep this in mind. And why this happens is because, like we discussed in episode 8, if we give a reward for good actions, it improves on that. But if you give a penalty, it then knows that, oh, this is bad and I shouldn't do this again, right? It is the same thing of using when we use human judges. And what a human judge does in this case is that, like when ChatGPT was created, what happened is, first things first, they trained the GPT system on conversation. And this was actually fine-tuning. So they fine-tuned the GPT system to be able to have conversations with humans. And what did they do? Remember what we said? You load it with new data, showing it conversational styles, and it learns from that. Step 2, they hired people to rate the responses. So 3 things were a major issue here. When AI systems were built, they needed answers to be, 1, helpful. They needed answers to also be honest. And they needed answers to be safe. So you could not ask AI questions like, how will I poison myself? Or how would I build a bomb? Because now you understand, you see the relationship, because the answer might be helpful, honest, but unsafe, right? Because I would say, how do I build a bomb? If it gives me a good answer, it's helpful. If it gives me a correct answer, it is honest. However, it should not give me an answer because that's an unsafe thing to do. So this is what the human judges were doing. Their ratings became the reward signal. And again, if you remember episode 8 where we talked about Spotify ratings and all of those things, it will begin to make sense here. So when it gave a response, they could easily rate, okay, this is not helpful, this is honest, this is unsafe. They did it. And over a lot of questions, the humans were able to, rate these systems. So it knows that if I tell you this is not helpful, give me less of those type of answers and give me more of helpful answers, right? That's the whole idea here. Now, this is why sometimes when you ask a question to ChatGPT, sometimes even a question that is like hurtful, a question that is not meant to answer, you see things like, I don't know. It will give you answers like, oh, I don't know the answer to this, or I cannot generate a response to this. Why? Because based on its training, it has learned to refuse certain types of requests, right? So in this case, it cannot even hallucinate. What happened is that human feedback shapes its personality. And I want you to just keep that in mind. So RLHF here is simply where we are saying that the human feedback can help AI to be able to build on its personality. Should I be more of this type of person? Should I be someone who doesn't care and can just give you any answers you want? Or should I be someone who actually does care and can give you the best answers possible? All of these are the things that are built into RLHF systems. So I feel that this is actually very important to know, because even fine-tuned systems are also rated on systems on cases like this, where they are able to build systems that answer questions properly, would not give you harmful responses, would not give you proprietary information that you do not need to have or are not customer focused, and would actually be able to help you to make the best decisions. Having explained all of that, at least in the simplest form possible, because that is the aim of this playlist, let us talk about real world AI. And once again, like I said at the beginning, many people think of AI like a question answer system where the only thing they know ChatGPT to do is give answers. The only thing they know Anthropic to do or Claude to do is give answers. DeepSeek gives me answers. Whereas there's a lot more things that artificial intelligence can do. And if you're able to connect the dots throughout the course of the playlist, you'll be able to see that we are not building a random system here, right? I need to be completely honest about something, right? Is that no matter how good the system is, it's going to fail. And that's something we're going to discuss next episode. But for now, we've talked about AI and how it learns, what powers the system, why the knowledge was never just academic. Everything we talked about, we're preparing for this moment because we need to show how it works in the real world. AI is not something that is coming. It's already here. It's in the hospital, it's in the bank, it's in the farm. And whether you know it or not, it's affecting decisions in your life already. So this episode is just a tour of real world impacts. What exactly is going on there? Now, a lot of people have made the mistake of saying that AI is going to replace humans, which once again, I find very funny because anyway, I don't want to go into that now, but AI is not actually going to replace humans. AI is just going to give humans like crazy superpowers, like think Superman on a computer. And I'm going to explain this in a very few interesting ways. There's something called diabetic retinopathy, and I would let's say retinopathy. I'm not going to pretend like I know what this is because it was through a research paper that I actually came to understand this. Diabetic retinopathy is one of the leading causes of blindness in Africa, sub-Saharan Africa. The only way to detect this is by doing an eye scan. So the truth is, they would actually sit you down. I don't know, I've never done an eye scan, but for people who have actually done an eye scan, they sit you down and you look at stuff and you identify stuff and all of that. I don't know, but then I guess that's the full idea. So anyways, when the eye scan is done, that basic retinopathy can actually be detected, and if detected early enough, it can be cured. However, there's a problem. And the problem is that the people who actually take care of the eyes, the ophthalmologists, we don't have enough of them to screen people all around Africa to be able to detect this diabetic retinopathy, right? So what we did was, I was not part of them, but what was done was that artificial intelligence systems were now trained to actually detect this system. I remember what we talked about a couple of episodes ago where we said that AI can be able to detect whether something we can detect breast cancer. It can look at malignant tumors or benign tumors. And the idea here is that we feed it a lot of examples. It knows what this a malignant tumor looks like, and it knows what a benign tumor actually looks like. So same thing here is that the AI system was fed diabetic retinopathy data, where it looked at systems that had positive DR and in those systems, AIs that have negative DR. And after studying this on millions of examples, today you do not need to have an ophthalmologist to actually check this for you. People all over the world are actually being checked with artificial intelligence systems with no specialist presence, and it catches the disease early. This is something that has been over 90% over 90% accuracy rates. So once again, artificial intelligence giving superpowers, right? And this is actually really, really amazing. Now, think of it like this when we also talk about drug discovery, right? In IBM and also in Google, medical artificial intelligence has actually been a very big deal, where systems like big Google systems are now used to study microscopic pathology slides, looking at cancer cells, and being able to actually look at those cells and be able to determine what type of drugs would work. Now, I'm not going to speak like an expert because I honestly don't know what happens under the hood, to be very honest, especially when it comes to molecular biology. But the point is, what used to take doctors 10 to 15 years for drug development is taking them, typically days, right, to actually fix. And this is because the artificial intelligence system is already conversant with existing knowledge and is working at the speed of like 1 million doctors at once to be able to actually determine what is going to work. So AI in this case, what exactly is the meaning of all this grammar that we've mentioned? AI in this case is what we say gives us better healthcare. Let's say faster diagnosis and wider reach. These are the advantages that we've just discussed. Faster diagnosis, wider reach, right? And more importantly, like we discussed with the drug, let's call this faster invention. So yes, you have systems that are not just answering questions. You have systems that are actually studying diseases. They are studying diseases, studying patterns within these diseases and making sense of it, and actually even predicting much, much better than a doctor. It doesn't make the doctor useless. It simply makes the doctor powerful. Let's move away from medicine, finance. And once again, you might think, why are we doing this? Because the truth is, understanding artificial intelligence systems beyond the question and answer method can actually give you an enlightenment into what's actually happening in the world today. So you wouldn't be surprised if you go to the hospital in the next 5 years and you just walk in, there's no doctor ready to see you. The doctors are all upstairs. You have an automated testing system downstairs that is checking every part of your body, sends a report to the doctor upstairs just because it has already found the issues right there with you. Amazing, wouldn't you say? Now let us proceed. Finance, in this case, is also another big deal. Now let me explain one of the biggest problems in finance: fraud detection. Let me explain what happens in Nigeria. In Nigeria right now, if you send a big amount of money from one bank to another bank, there's something they will call flagging. So they will just flag it. Especially if that is not a common thing that happens with that account. So they'll flag it. And what they are simply saying is, you are not meant to be receiving this type of money. Where did you get the money from? Right? Now, every time you use your debit card and it goes through, nobody flagged it, nothing happened. Every time it blocks its transaction that feels wrong from 2 a.m. AI is what is doing that, right? AI is at the middle checking the transaction to know whether that transaction is fraudulent or not. If you know how many times people are actually trying to attack your cards by stealing money from your account, right? AI is what is checking it, like, okay, why is somebody trying to make a payment from Toronto when all your payments were previously from Nigeria? It does not match the pattern. So Toronto, block it. Yep, that happens, right? So the truth is, all of these things, fraud detection in this case was one of the earliest things that AI was used to detect. Yeah, because this aspect of banking, right, was like something that was really making them lose money. And why this is important, why it was a very big deal was, I think we've also explained in one of our episodes, but let's also look at it again. Is like if you have, let's say, let's just say 40 million transactions, right? In these 40 million transactions, 20% of them are fraudulent, right? But they are not arranged from 1 to 50 and say the first 50 are the fraudulent transactions, the rest are non-fraudulent. No, these are transactions, 20% of transactions mixed within 40 million transactions. Now think about it. How would you as a human go in there and begin to sift through 40 million transactions and, find the fraudulent ones? It's actually a very big deal. So enter AI. AI just goes in there, flags the anomalies. It looks at all of the patterns, sees what is an outlier, sees what is not supposed to be happening, and then flags it, right? And when it flags it, it's able to detect what is going on in there. That exactly is one of the ideas that AI is actually helping to do. And it's one of the reasons why you see people can just transfer lump sum of money into your account because they know that the bank is going to track it. There is no human being sitting down behind the system looking at every transaction that happens every day in Lagos and saying, oh, this one is a fraud. Nope. Artificial intelligence systems are doing that. In lending as well too, which is actually a very big deal in Ghana and also in Nigeria. Sorry about that. So what happens is there's what we call lending systems, right? Borrow money, pay back after a period of time. Now, the truth is, in the US, there's something called a credit history, right? And credit history is simply something that tells, and I'm not very concerned with this, but credit history is simply something that tells the banker or the loan officer that this person is eligible to take a loan based on a couple of things that we know about him. He's a civil servant. He is above 50 years of age. He earns $50,000 a month, and he works here, and he has a house, and he has a car. They combine all of those features together, and they say, oh yeah, you are actually ready to, right? You can earn money. But then you notice that over the years, right? Imagine if everyone that wanted to earn money was actually standing on a very long queue waiting to see the loan officer. How long do you think that would take? The loan officer would have to look through all of their documents to see if everything they do is actually correct, and then would have to give them a loan or not give them a loan. So now, in places like Africa where there's nothing like a credit history, right? AI is used to access credit risk. So there's no credit history, but we can access credit risk, right? Millions of people in Nigeria don't have a bank account, so they don't have a credit file, right? So mobile lenders, like these guys on your phones, people just go there and they borrow money from them. They use AI. Some of them use AI to access whether you would likely repay. Yeah, they look at your transaction history, your bank history, your behavioral signals. They have access to your capital and they know whether there's a tendency. So you can't just go online and say, I want to borrow 1 million naira, and who's going to give you that kind of money when you have no history to back it up. So now AI can check the risk and say, oh, this person, there's a tendency he's going to pay back, but there's a tendency that he's not going to pay back. No need for a loan officer. AI is doing that. And to the one I found the most interesting, because I was actually shocked first time I heard about it, but AI is actually a very big guy in agriculture. So why agriculture? Well, agriculture feeds the world, obviously. Everybody eats, right? So where over 60%, 60 to 65% of the population depend on farming, AI is actually a lifeline. So think of this situation. When farmers actually plant, when farmers actually plant, they have a very big problem, and the problem is weeds, sick seeds, and so on and so forth. All of those things exist in the middle of healthy crop. So how do you filter this stuff and this stuff from the healthy crop? Now, the farmer, there are two ways to it. The farmer could go in there, check it one after the other, check it one after the other. And what he's looking for is a visible symptom, something that will tell him like, oh, these leaves are actually creating holes within themselves, so they are no longer healthy. If he doesn't see anything that is wrong with the leaf based on his eyes, he ignores that. Now, If he detects it on time, no spread of diseases. But however, think about it. If the farmer has 200 acres of land, how much can he do within how much period, how many period of the period of time, right? What exactly says that he can actually catch it? And remember that farmer looking at it now is like we doing RLHF, reinforcement learning with human feedback. So, anyways, point is, farmers can't do this on their own. And this is the reason why crops die in Africa, crops die all over the world, is because a lot of the time diseases have spread and there's no way to actually track it. So all of a sudden the crops are dead. However, there's AI powered applications, and they did not sponsor this video anyways, but Plantix. So Plantix is one of those AI powered applications that actually does stuff like this. And what it does is they allow a farmer take a photograph of a sick leaf with their phone, and if the farmer sees that crop, the phone would actually the application would scan the crop and see if the crop is sick or the crop has a problem, and if he sees it, the farmer can actually, and it will recommend ways that the farmer can treat it. He does not have to go to the agronomist for that. And another system that works is that drones can actually fly over farms, capture images, and the AI will analyze all of those images and see disease crops even before visitable symptoms begin to show. Artificial intelligence systems can actually do that. So this is one of the beautiful parts of it, artificial intelligence. I know I'm rushing through this because of a function of time, but I really hope you are getting the point that beyond question and answers, these systems are actually very important. Now, another thing that is very interesting is the weather forecast. People have been doing weather forecasts for a very long time, but AI weather models are actually very, very good, right? So what AI models do is that AI models can not just give you the weather forecast, they also can tell you when to plant, when to irrigate, and when to harvest. And it will not tell you this based on the weather in Lagos. And my pen is so messy today. Or the weather in Nairobi, or the weather in Egypt. Nope, it's not doing that. This is too generic. The system will tell you when you should plant, when you should harvest, when you should irrigate in your own farm. It studies the weather pattern in your own farm, just your farm, not the farm of your neighbor. It doesn't do that. It studies the weather pattern in your farm, and it actually works. Like, this stuff works. This is not future, right? If you go online and you do your research, it is happening in Benue, it's happening in Kano, it is happening in the Western Cape, it's happening in Cape Verde, it's happening in Morocco. This stuff is really happening. Artificial intelligence systems are being put to work. And one that is actually very beautiful is the fact that they are being used to build robots. And you might have seen it all over the world, right? Robotic systems where robots can now fold your shirts, fold your clothes. All of those things are artificial intelligence. Because if you remember the episode where we talked about self-driving cars, it is a try and fail system. They tried, they failed, they reinforced them with learning, and then they do best. So now, what is the one thing I want to take from this episode is that AI's biggest impact will not happen in Silicon Valley and San Francisco, right? That's not what's going to happen. It's going to happen where there's a gap, and the gap is here in Africa, right? In farmers without agronomists, in credit history, in banks, in clinics. In fact, in medical science, AI is blowing up crazily, right? This is where AI can do good. And that is the major part, the major theme of this episode. AI does good, right? So all of these examples we've given are places where AI is doing good, right? It's doing great stuff for everybody. However, whatever goes up can come down. So artificial intelligence can also do harm. That's exactly what we're going to talk about in the next episode. And although this might feel a bit boring compared to what we've been doing all the way down, I think it is super, super important to explain stuff like this, because once again, the essence of this playlist is to help people understand what AI is from a human standpoint and not from a tech standpoint. And so what's good would it be explaining what AI is to you without still showing you everything that AI is accomplishing, at least to the very best of my ability. So next week, we're going to talk about the harmful parts of artificial intelligence systems. Bye.